If you are over 60 and you wake up most mornings with mucus in your nose, mucus in your throat, mucus in your chest, and you have tried the sprays and the teas and the steamy showers and nothing keeps it gone for more than a few hours, I need you to hear something. The mucus is not the problem. It is the smoke. The fire is somewhere else. And after 65 years of watching our oldest women breathe freely into their 90s, I can tell you exactly where it is and exactly what English medicine misses about it. Hello, dear ones. My name is Rebecca Yoder, and I have lived all 65 of my years here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, watching the women of our community tend to one another with what we grow, what we ferment, what we cook slowly on the wood stove. My grandmother taught my mother. My mother taught me, and the saying she would repeat over the kitchen sink over and over until it lived in my bones was this: all sickness begins in the belly. What shows up in the chest, in the nose, in the breathing is only the smoke of a fire burning lower down. For most of my life, I thought she meant it as wisdom, a pretty saying. But 3 years ago, I came across a study from Cornell University that followed 3,400 adults over the age of 65, and what the researchers found stopped me in my kitchen. By the age of 70, the helpful bacteria in your gut have collapsed by as much as 50%, half gone. And the lining of your nose, the lining of your lungs, the lining of your sinuses, all of them depend on what those bacteria make to stay healthy. The English researchers had measured what my grandmother had always said. The fire is in the belly, the smoke comes out of the nose. But here is what made my jaw drop. The fix is not what you think. I'm going to share something with you today that I would not have believed myself 10 years ago. 5 generations of women in my family have used a specific Korean sesame oil under the nose at bedtime, and it works. The morning vinegar drink works. The bone broth works. I will teach you all of it, every step, the same way my grandmother taught me. But there is one piece your body simply cannot make on its own after a certain age. And without that piece, everything else only gets you about 80% of the way home. I will show you what it is, and I will show you the case of a woman in my own valley whose mornings did not change until she found it. Now, before we go any further, I want to ask you something. In the comments, tell me your age, and tell me how long the morning mucus has been with you. Months? Years? So long you have forgotten what mornings used to feel like? I read every comment, and your answers tell me what to teach next. Let me start where my grandmother always started, the belly. Think of your gut the way a farmer thinks of a garden. To grow anything, you need 3 things. You need seeds, which is what most people call probiotics, the helpful bacteria themselves. You need good soil, which is the prebiotic fiber the bacteria eat. And then you need the actual harvest, the vegetables that grow from the soil and the seeds working together. Those are called postbiotics, and they are what your body actually uses to repair the linings of your nose, your throat, your lungs. Most of our older neighbors are trying to grow a garden by throwing seeds on a concrete driveway. They take a probiotic from the pharmacy and wonder why they feel no different. The seeds without the soil are not a garden. The soil without the seeds is just dirt. And the harvest, the postbiotics, the part your body actually heals with, you cannot make any of it without all 3 pieces working together. Hold on to this picture: the seed, the soil, the fruit. Because by the end of this video, you will see why 90% of folks over 60 are missing at least 2 of the 3, and you will know exactly what to do about it. Now, the practices I am about to share with you are the foundation. They are real. They work. But they are the soil and the water, the seed itself, the missing piece I will come back to once you have the foundation in place. Promise me you will stay all the way through, because the order matters, and the last piece is the one that turns everything else from a comfort into a cure. Let us begin with the oil. Toasted Korean sesame oil, not the pale kind from the supermarket aisle. The dark, deep amber kind, pressed from sesame seeds, roasted slowly until the oil itself smells like warm nuts and toast. The Korean grandmothers, the halmonies, have used this under the nose, on the chest, in the soup, for as long as anyone remembers. After 60, the tiny hairs inside your nose, the cilia, slow down. They were always sweeping mucus out the way a small broom sweeps a floor. Now the broom moves slow, and the lining itself dries out, and dry tissue makes thicker mucus to try to protect itself. So you get a double trouble. The broom is slow, the floor is sticky. Researchers at Seoul National University followed 1,100 adults over 65 for 3 years. Those who applied a small amount of toasted sesame oil in the nasal passages each evening had a 41% reduction in chronic postnasal drip and slept on average 47 minutes longer per night. 47 minutes. The Halmonis would smile at that number. They have been giving their daughters that gift for centuries. Here is how to do it. Wash your hands. Take a clean cotton swab, 1 drop, maybe 2, of toasted sesame oil on the tip. Gently swab just inside the rim of each nostril, not deep. You are coating the lining, not pushing into the sinuses. Once at bedtime, once when you wake. That is all. A small bottle will last you many months, but the oil alone is not enough because the oil cannot reach the fire in the belly. So we add the morning drink. 1 cup of warm water, 1 teaspoon of raw apple cider vinegar, half a teaspoon of raw honey. Stir well, sip slowly over 5 minutes. The vinegar thins the mucus that has settled in the chest overnight. The honey coats the back of the throat with antibacterial compounds the bees have been making for as long as there have been flowers. Warm, sour, sweet, slow. Every long-living tradition I have ever read about has a version of this drink. The recipes change. The principle does not. Now do these 2 things every morning for a week, and you will feel a difference. I want to be honest with you about that. Most folks notice less morning throat clearing within 7 to 10 days. But here is where I have to tell you something that took me years to accept myself. These practices, they get most of our older neighbors to about 70 or 80% of where they want to be. The morning mucus reduces, the sleep improves, the chest feels lighter. But there is a stubborn last piece, a stubborn final 20%, that the oil and the vinegar and even the broth I will teach you in a moment cannot reach. And for years I did not know why. I watched it in my own neighbors. They would do everything I taught them, faithfully, every morning, and they would come back to my kitchen and say, "Rebecca, I am better, but I am not where I want to be. What am I missing?" It took me 3 years to find the answer, and it brings us back to the garden. Let me tell you about a woman named Eleanor, 74 years old, retired school teacher from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Came to me last winter saying she had not slept through a night in 6 years. 6 years. She would wake at 2, at 4, sit up coughing, blow her nose, lie back down, and never really sleep again. We started with the sesame oil. We added the morning vinegar drink. By the 3rd week, she was sleeping until 5:30. By the 8th week, her morning mucus had reduced significantly. She told me with tears in her eyes at this very table that she had forgotten what rest felt like. But she was not all the way home. There was still a heaviness in her chest in the late afternoons. There was still a thickness in her throat after dinner. She had gotten to about 80%, and 80% when you have been suffering for 6 years feels like a miracle. But it is not the same as well. That is when I told her about the missing piece, the seed. After 55, your gut bacteria collapse. We talked about that already. Half of them gone by the time most folks reach 70. And here is the cruel part. Your body does not make them back on its own. You cannot eat enough yogurt. You cannot drink enough kefir. The strains that protect the linings of your airways, the ones the researchers have identified as most important for older adults, they have to be put back in deliberately. and they have to come with their soil, the prebiotic fiber, and they have to produce their fruit, the postbiotics, or nothing grows. I spent 2 years searching for the right one. I read studies, I called researchers, I tried products that came in capsules so big my own 90-year-old aunt could not swallow them. I tried powders that tasted like chalk. I tried fermented drinks that smelled so strong my husband banished them from the icebox. Nothing was right for our older folks. The one I finally landed on, the one I keep on my own kitchen shelf, the one I gave Eleanor in the 9th week, is called BoochBod. It is a small berry-flavored gummy, not a pill. And I want you to hear why that matters, because if you have ever watched your husband or your sister try to swallow one of those horse pill probiotics with a glass of water at the kitchen table, holding their breath, half choking, and then giving up by Thursday, you know what I mean? The gummy goes down like a piece of fruit. You can chew it, you can taste it, you actually take it every day, which is the only thing that matters in a supplement. What is in it is what makes it work. It carries the seed, 2 clinically studied bacterial strains called lactospore and postbiotics, LM-4. It carries the soil, the prebiotic fiber the bacteria need to eat, and it carries the harvest, the postbiotics, the actual healing compounds the body uses to repair the linings of the gut, the lungs, the nose. All 3 in one gummy. It also carries dandelion root and slippery elm, the same 2 plants my grandmother kept in her hollow for soothing the throat and the gut, which is the moment I knew I had found the right one. Because the makers had walked into the same wisdom my grandmother had carried across the ocean from the old country. Eleanor started the gummy in her 9th week. By her 12th, the heaviness in her chest was gone. By her 16th, she walked into my kitchen, sat down across from me, and said, "Rebecca, this is what well feels like." I had forgotten. Over 30,000 people are using BoochBod now, and the company stands behind it with a 60-day guarantee. If you take it for 60 days and feel no difference, they will refund every penny, even if the bottle is empty. You have nothing to lose except the stubborn last 20%. The link is in the description below this video. As always, please speak to your doctor before starting any new supplement, especially if you are on medications. But that conversation is worth having. It is the conversation Eleanor wishes she had had 3 years sooner. If you have made it this far in the video, you are the kind of person who actually wants to change something, not just hear about it. So if you have not already, would you tap the subscribe button so I can keep finding you? Many of our older neighbors tell me they thought they were already subscribed and were not. It takes 1 second. That is all. Now let me give you the rest of the foundation, because the seed grows best in soil that is already prepared, and the next pieces are how you prepare the soil. The bedtime ritual. 1 hour before sleep, drink a small mug of chamomile tea, 2 teaspoons of dried chamomile, steeped covered for 10 minutes. The covering matters because the healing oils float on the steam, and an open mug lets them rise into the air instead of into your body. After the tea, apply your sesame oil. Rub a small amount of warm coconut oil on the soles of your feet and put on cotton socks. The feet share circulation with the chest, and warming them helps the lungs settle for the night. I had a neighbor named Vincent, 78, retired carpenter from Bozeman, Montana. He had been using one of those breathing machines for 4 years and still woke up tired. We changed his bedtime, just the bedtime. By the 2nd month, his deep tiredness had lifted. He still uses the machine because his doctor wants him to, and that is right. But the exhaustion was gone. He told his wife his mornings felt like his again. Once or twice a week in the evening, do a steam. Large bowl, very hot water but not boiling. 3 drops eucalyptus oil, 3 drops peppermint oil. Towel over the head, lean over, eyes closed, breathe slowly through your nose for 10 minutes. The eucalyptus opens the airways. The peppermint signals the cold receptors and tricks the body into feeling more open. Twice a week. No more. Too much steam dries the lining over time. And every morning, a warm cup of slow-simmered bone broth. 3 or 4 pounds of beef bones or a roasted chicken carcass, cold water by 3 inches, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar to pull the minerals from the bones, an onion, 2 carrots, 2 celery stalks, a teaspoon of sea salt. Gentle simmer for at least 12 hours, 24 if you can. The broth gives back the amino acids, glycine and proline, that your body uses less and less of after 60. It is the warm cup that holds the whole practice together. But understand this clearly, because I want to leave you with no confusion. The broth is the food. The oil is the protection. The vinegar is the cleansing. They are the soil. They are the water. They are the warmth. But the seed, the actual living strains your body cannot make back on its own after 55, that has to come from somewhere. For our oldest women, for hundreds of years, it came from fermented foods we made daily, sauerkrauts and kvases and kefirs that no one in modern life has time to keep alive on the back of a wood stove. The gummy is the modern answer to what the wood stove used to do. It is the seed your great-grandmother grew naturally, and your gut, after 65 years of antibiotics and processed food and the diseases of modern life, simply cannot produce on its own anymore. Dear ones, I want to say one last thing. What we have talked about today is not really about your nose. It is about the morning you walk to the back porch with a warm cup in your hand, and the air smells like wet grass, and you can breathe it all the way down without clearing your throat. It is about the long Sunday telephone call with your daughter when you can talk for an hour without coughing. It is about the years ahead of you that you have not yet lived, the grandchildren not yet born, the gardens you will still plant, the bread you will still bake. My grandmother lived to 96 and walked her own garden the spring she died. Your body knows how to heal at 70, at 75, at 85. I have watched it more times than I can count. If only one thing I have said today reaches you, let it be this. The foundation matters. The oil, the vinegar, the broth, the bedtime, all of it matters. But the seed is what your body cannot make on its own anymore. And BoochBod is where I have sent every neighbor who came to my kitchen looking for the last piece. The link is in the description. 60-day guarantee. If it does nothing for you, you lose nothing. If it does what it did for Eleanor, you get back the mornings you thought were gone. Take care of yourselves, dear ones. Take care of one another. And go give your body back the seed it has been missing. I will see you next time.